My name is Miles Carter. I'm 28, and at Friday dinner, my dad leaned back, smirked, and said, "You're not half the man your brother island." The knife tapped the cutting board. The television hummed on mute. My mother's smile went stiff, and Chase grinned like he'd won something he didn't earn. 2 weeks later, they added his name to the deed, no call, no ask, after 3 years of property support, quietly leaving my account. I sat there in a fitted white shirt, honey blonde hair combed flat, feeling the heat from the oven on my left cheek and cold air on my right. But what they didn't know was I'd brought paper, not rage. Before I continue, tell me where you're watching from. And hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Comment your city and tag the one friend who always keeps receipts. It helps this story find someone who needs it tonight. Ready? Let me take you back to where the cracks started. I grew up in a house where the television talked even when nobody listened, and the thermostat was always a little too high, like the walls were afraid of silence. My dad Frank liked dinner's loud forks, clinking chair legs, scraping tile, his voice riding above it all with the same sermon: family helps family. He said it like a law, not a hope. Mom Lydia would smile, that soft bakery window smile that made commands look like dessert. She'd nudge the biggest piece of roast toward my brother Chase because he worked with his hands all day. Then she'd pat my wrist and say, "You don't mind, do you?" I didn't. Not out loud. I swallowed and told myself it was just meat, and that meat wasn't proof. I didn't know it back then, but those small trade-offs add up like interest. In our family photos, Dad's hand always found Chase's shoulder first. At the county fair, there's a shot where I'm holding a third-place ribbon for a math contest. Chase didn't enter anything that year, but he's centered in the frame, his smile big enough to borrow light. "Proud of both my boys," Dad said, eyes lingering not on the ribbon but on the son who looked like him in the jaw. Mom slipped the ribbon into her purse so it wouldn't get bent. We never saw it again. I laughed it off because laughter is cheaper than a scene. I didn't know it then, but every time I said "it's fine," I signed a tiny IOU with my name. By high school, being useful had become my language. I fixed the Wi-Fi, I alphabetized the warranty drawer. I built a spreadsheet that told us the best week to pay the power bill to avoid late fees without overdrafting. Chase fixed engines with Dad. I fixed everything you couldn't see. At Christmas, he got a toolkit that gleamed like a trophy. I got a sweater and a brand Mom called nice. The sweater was fine, warm even, but there's a kind of warmth that asks you to pay for it. I didn't know it then, but warmth can be a bill. I got my first job bagging groceries in a store that smelled like oranges and bleach. Paydays felt like holidays. I folded the bills into an envelope the way Mom folded dish towels, edges neat, corners true. When Dad's truck needed tires to keep jobs coming, he floated the need across the dinner table and let it land where it always landed. "I can cover this one," I said, because saying I can felt better than "I can't." He clapped my shoulder big and approving. "That's my boy," he said. I smiled like my mouth owed money. I didn't know it then, but it matters whose name shows up on the receipt. College didn't mean dorms. Dorms were for people whose money didn't wear other people's fingerprints. I commuted, worked part-time, and kept my GPA like it was a plant that only drank at night. When Chase wanted a nicer down payment on his condo, Mom said it couldn't happen without family. Dad said, "Your brother's building something," and looked at me for the solution. I loaned what I could. We never said the word loan out loud. We said help, and help evaporates faster than interest accrues. I didn't know it then, but words build ledgers, even when the font is invisible. The group chat Carter Fam started as a way to plan potlucks and became a hallway with no doors. Pings came at all hours, memes about hustle from Dad, recipes from Mom, requests from Chase that wore manners like a hat. "Hey little bro, can you Venmo the difference? I'll square you on Friday." Friday kept moving like a holiday you never quite catch. When I didn't answer, dots bubbled anyway, as if silence was rude to the air. Mom would step in with a long text sigh. "Don't be petty, Miles. You know your brother's under pressure." I'd send the money and tell myself I was avoiding noise. I didn't know it then, but quiet can cost more than shouting. In my 20s, I fell in love with spreadsheets because they kept their promises. Numbers didn't guilt trip you. They just balanced, or they didn't. I took a junior analyst role, learned to make things add up, and found out I was good at it. Meanwhile, Chase started full-time with Dad's company, driving a truck that smelled like sawdust and pride. At dinner, Dad would flick a glance at my clean hands and say, "Office work is nice, but a day's work is a day you can feel." I didn't argue. The last thing a room wants is a debate that ends in decimals. I didn't know it then, but letting a false story stand is how families decide it's true. 3 years ago, when a big client backed out, and the mortgage squeaked help stop being occasional and became automatic. On the first of the month, a transfer left my account with a quiet ping, property support. The memo line read like a promise I was making to a house, not to people. I watched the balance shrink and told myself the house was history, and history is worth rent. The first transfer felt like a bridge. The 12th felt like a habit. The 24th felt like I'd built a second budget around other people's choices. I didn't know it then, but habits become contracts you didn't sign. Holidays sharpened the edges. Thanksgiving smelled like butter and thyme and the faint metal of the carving knife. Dad toasted the men who build things while looking at Chase. Mom poured me the good Pinot and whispered, "Say you're proud of him. It means a lot." I said it because I meant it. He is good at what he does. But the sentence caught in my throat like a pill with no water. Christmas had its own script. Chase got something that hummed with the future. I got something that looked like I could be cold. I told myself love and math aren't the same subject. I didn't know it then, but in our house, they shared a teacher. I was 26 when I tried to have the talk. Not the talk about feelings. The talk about numbers. I brought a printed budget to Sunday dinner and laid it on the table like a tablecloth. "Can we make a plan?" I asked, so I'm not the only fail-safe. Dad's fork froze midair. Mom smiled a little wider, her way of turning volume up without sound. "Don't ruin the weekend with math," she said. Chase laughed like a cough. "You love this stuff," he said. "It's your thing." My thing. As if I had a hobby for catching other people's falling plates. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I asked for fairness instead of building a fence. When I switched to a tech startup, my paycheck jumped, and so did the expectations I didn't agree to. "Look at you, Dad," said Pride, drawing the words as if they led to his driveway. "Big shot." Mom texted me screenshots of interest rates like love notes. Chase sent me a link to a truck he needed for work, with a winking emoji and the words "cosign quick thing." I stared at the screen until my eyes felt like dry glass. "No," I typed. "It's not personal, it's policy." He replied with 3 dots, then wow. In our family, policy was a bad word. I didn't know it then, but policy would be the only thing that kept me from drowning. A month later, the Carter fam chat lit up with a picture from our neighbor Mrs. Whitaker, her front porch, our yard, and a banner strung between 2 stakes. "Congrats, Chase, welcome to the deed." My stomach went cold the way a room does when the power dies. I scrolled for context. Mom sent a heart emoji. Dad sent a bicep. Chase sent a selfie in front of the sign, thumb up the house behind him, making him look taller. I looked at my bank app, and the 3 years of property support lined up like soldiers. I didn't know it then, but a sign on a lawn can change the weather inside your chest. I didn't go nuclear. I went to work. I pulled bank statements, took screenshots with timestamps, opened a fresh binder and slid clear sleeves into place until the plastic made its own quiet thunder. I labeled a spine with a strip of masking tape and a marker house. The word looked both simple and violent. The next morning, I set an appointment at the bank and met a man named Owen Blake who wore a tie that didn't brag. "I need copies," I said, "and I need to know what counts if I stop." He printed, he highlighted, he wrote his name and the date under a line that mattered. "Best practice," he said, "paper over memory." I didn't know it then, but Owen would be the only person that winter who spoke my language without needing a translation. Meanwhile, the Carter fam chorus kept time. "Mom, your brother's under so much pressure, be kind." "Dad, we made a decision for the family business, don't be dramatic." "Chase, if you just co-sign the truck, it'll all wash out." Wash out. As if money was mud and not time I'd never get back. I typed and erased 10 replies. Then I sent one, "I'm not a co-signer. Don't list my name anywhere." There was a pause long enough to hear the heater click and the pipes tweak. "Mom, don't make me the referee." I set my phone face down and stared at the binder until the plastic looked like skin. I didn't know it then, but stillness is a tool if you use it like one. The next week at dinner, Dad floated a speech about legacy, his hands making shapes in the air as if drawing a bridge only he could see. "We added your brother to the deed to protect the company's future," he said. He didn't say my name. He didn't say the house had been protected for 3 years by transfers that knew my routing number by heart. I cut my chicken so carefully, it looked like geometry. "Okay," I said. My voice came out level. "That's your choice." He blinked. He'd prepared for anger. He hadn't prepared for a ledger. I didn't know it then, but calm can be the sharpest knife in the drawer. When the dealer's finance manager, Tara, called from a number that looked like spam and asked for a quick verbal on a recorded line, I said no and hung up with a politeness that tasted like 10, 15 minutes later, An email arrived with a cheerful headline and a form where my name appeared under co-applicant, even though I'd never touched a pen. 2 inches below in red secondary applicant identity verification failed. I took a screenshot, then another with the clock showing in the corner like a witness. I added them to the binder. Clear sleeves, crisp edges, a story that couldn't be argued away by volume. I didn't know it then, but the binder would become my voice. In the middle of all of this, life kept acting like it was normal. I got promoted. I figured out the coffee machine at work that didn't taste like burnt pennies. I started running again 2 miles before sunrise, breath sharp in the cold streetlights, making the road look like a dotted line I could follow out. I wore the same uniform most days, a white Oxford-fitted clean dark trousers, shoes that didn't squeak, because deciding fewer things meant I had more room to stand my ground on the ones that mattered. In the mirror, with the apartment's afternoon light sliding left to right across my face, I looked like someone who had stopped apologizing for being precise. Honey blonde hair, close-cut jaw, smooth eyes steady. I held the frame on my phone from the knees up, making sure both arms fit, nothing cropped. The shot felt ridiculous until I realized it made me pay attention to edges. I didn't know it then, but edges keep you honest. I skipped a weekend trip with a woman I was seeing, a quick coast drive, nothing grand, because the mortgage was due, and I knew what would happen if I didn't send my part. I didn't tell her the reason. I said I had a deadline. She said she understood, and maybe she did, but the car still left the driveway without me. The next day, Dad texted a photo of a new compressor at the job site. "Couldn't have done it without you, champ." He meant it kindly. It landed like a brick. I didn't know it then, but kindness without consent is just control dressed for church. When Jade, my cousin, DM'd me a week later, with heads up, family appreciation dinner next month, she attached a slideshow outline meant to play on a projector at the event hall. The last slide said "Chase the backbone." Under it were photos of checks and transfers. I recognized my memos, my bank's font, as if my hands had learned to wear his name. Jade added, "I thought you should see." My fingers went numb. Then they remembered the binder. I saved the file. I printed the thumbnails. I slid them into sleeves that didn't care whether a room would call me ungrateful. I didn't know it then, but the night of that dinner would be the first time in my life I let the paper speak louder than the people I loved. By then I had stopped the property support transfers. I drafted a single paragraph, no blame, no poetry, stating I wouldn't be making further payments and all future financial involvement required my written consent. I taped a printed copy to my apartment's fridge so I could see every morning the sentence that finally had my back. When Dad came by to talk like men and saw the binder on my counter, he laughed. "This what you bring to a family table?" he asked. "This," I said. "Tapping the spine is how I survive one." He shook his head, amused in the way you are when a child says something wrong with confidence. He left with a promise that sounded like a threat. "Don't embarrass us." I didn't know it then, but embarrassment is just a story people tell you to make you put your facts away. On Thursday nights, I began rehearsing not a speech but a temperature. Breathing slow until my heart matched the watch on my wrist. Standing in the mirror with the light traveling left to right across my face the way it will on camera or in a bright room. Putting the binder down and picking it up so the weight felt like a tool, not a burden. Practicing the sentence I'd say when the projector warmed up and the family smiles sharpened. "I'm not asking for a place on paper. I'm asking for the truth to be in the room." I didn't know it then, but I was getting ready to stop being a fuse. The week after Jade sent the slideshow, I started taking smaller breaths so my sentences would come out level. Mornings, I ironed my uniform on a towel spread across the counter. White Oxford, fitted just enough that the seams sat where they were supposed to sit. I learned the iron's language, a slow exhale of steam, a hiss at the collar, the weight of the plate, smoothing corners until the fabric behaved. I kept my hair cropped and honey blonde, not loud, just a shade that kept my face awake on camera. I trimmed my beard to nothing, shaved clean, tapped a little concealer under the eyes so the late nights didn't steal the point. Matte moisturizer, clear lip balm, a line of cologne so faint it only existed when you were already close. In the mirror, the afternoon light traveled from left to right, bright on my left cheekbone, a graded shadow on the right, like the room itself was agreeing to keep my edges honest. I always framed from the knees up on my phone, both arms and no elbows cut, because a man with his full arms in the frame looks like he isn't hiding his hands. I didn't know it then, but the way I dressed would keep me calm when the room tried to make me shake. At work, I asked our office manager if I could borrow the small projector for a side presentation. She laughed. "You breaking up with somebody with charts?" I smiled. Something like that. In a conference room that smelled like dry erase markers and old pizza boxes, I plugged in a USB and built a slide deck no one in my family would call pretty, but no one could call a lie. Title slide, Property Support, 2021, 2023. Subhead, What kept the house paid. Each month got a line date amount memo. No color except the red underline under the total. I kept the fonts boring on purpose. Boring fonts don't lie. I didn't know it then, but plain design would be the sharpest language I had. On a Tuesday, I stopped by the bank on my lunch break. Owen Blake wore the same not bragging tie and remembered my name without checking a screen. Copies and confirmations, I said, sliding a list across the counter. He printed with the neat urgency of someone who understood time as a cost center. While the pages came warm from the machine, he tilted his head. You doing okay? He asked like a human, not a teller. I'm practicing, no, I said. Tough muscle, he said. Get stronger each rep. He stamped dates, highlighted lines, signed the bottom of a letter with a wet pen that left a small halo of ink where it paused. Paper over memory. I tucked the stack into clear sleeves and heard that small plastic thunder again. If you've ever put your life in order, you know that sound. That weekend I walked past the Carter house and found Mrs. Whitaker trimming the hedge like it had sinned. Oh, Miles, she said, waving me over with the clippers. I meant to text you this. She handed me a glossy 4x6 of the banner, the one that had made my stomach go dark. The wind tried to steal it, so I got a photo before it blew away, she said, proud of her reflex. In the picture, the letters looked innocent, like the start of a parade. Congrats, Chase. Welcome to the deed. The house in the background stood at attention, siding bright windows, clean as if it had any say. Thank you, I said. She leaned in conspiratorially. You're the one who keeps those folks together, she whispered. Everybody knows. I smiled for her sake, then slid the photo into my pocket and felt it there like a thin stone. I didn't know it then, but that photo would be the slide that stopped people from pretending they misheard. Mom called the next night to ask what I was bringing to the family appreciation dinner. Just yourself, she said, and your good mood. Her voice wore powdered sugar. We're doing a surprise for your brother. Don't ruin it, okay? Ruin it. I pictured the deck, the neat months, the polite total. I'll keep it sweet, I said. She exhaled like I'd passed a test. I didn't know she was grading. Wear that white shirt, she added. You look so handsome when you keep it simple. The irony landed and stayed. Handsome is easier to hear than know. I didn't know it then, but I was about to make handsome carry weight. Aunt Marlene cornered me at the grocery store with a cart full of club soda and plastic cutlery. You coming to this circus? She asked. She's the kind of aunt who never learned to whisper. Wouldn't miss it, I said. She narrowed her eyes and lowered her voice anyway. I don't like the way your father talks about legacy when he means loyalty. She tapped the handle of the cart. You bring paper, Miles. That's how you win in a family like ours. I swallowed. Paper feels rude, I said. No, she said. Paper is how you keep from being rewritten. I thought about being rewritten. There's a photo from when I was 8, me, in a white shirt tucked into brown pants that made me look like a small teacher, Chase, standing on a cooler so he could be taller for the shot. Dad's arm around him, not me. Mom's smile like she's apologizing for the weather. I took that photo down from the hall wall once to look at the back. Mom had written in looping pen, my boys after Chase's first t-ball game. She didn't mention my math medal from the same day. It wasn't malicious. It was a habit. Habits become history if you don't interrupt them. I started a habit of my own. Night runs at 9 p.m. through neighborhoods where porch lights carved rectangles on concrete. It was late enough that the air tasted cleaner and early enough that the sprinklers were still shy. My watch ticked louder in the cold. Step, step, step. No, in time with footfalls. When the dealer Tara texted another quick verbal request, this time cheerier with exclamation points and the lie of just awareness, I stopped under a street lamp and typed back. Remove my name from every file. Credit is frozen. All authorizations require my in-person ID. Then I added 3 words that surprised me when I saw them there. Do not call. I didn't know it then, but those 3 words would keep me from flinching when the room tried to make me sociable. Chase tried jokes. Little bro, you gotta admit a truck is sexy, he wrote. I'll even let you drive it. I kept the phone on the table and let the dots bubble and die. Hours later, he sent a longer one. You act like a saint, but you love being the hero. Just be the hero one more time. I didn't reply. Hero is a costume that comes with a trapdoor. One thing about making charts, all day you start thinking in axis. On the x-axis time. On the y, respect. Every time I said yes when I meant no, the line dipped. Every time I wrote something down, it rose a fraction. When I told Owen to add a fraud alert, the line kicked up. When I asked Jade for the unedited slide deck and the run of show, the dot jumped again. I wasn't gaming the graph. I was watching it tell on me. I didn't know it then, but graphs can make you braver because they make your story look like weather instead of fate. I rehearsed in front of a window with the blinds half open so a bar of light cut the room in my face. I practiced picking up the binder with my left hand, freeing my right for pages so I could keep my voice steady while my body did something. I practiced saying I'm not asking for credit. I'm asking for accuracy without heat in it. I practiced sitting down after I said it, so no one could accuse me of turning a dinner into a trial. I didn't write a speech. I wrote bullet points and then deleted them, leaving only the order of the pages to guide me. I set a small metronome app to 60 BPM and matched my breath to it. Inhale 4 beats. Exhale 4 beats so that when Dad tried to speed the room up, I'd still be moving at my own tempo. The last quiet Sunday before the dinner, I visited the house at an hour when Dad would be at the job site and Mom would be at church. The driveway was empty, the for sale sign not yet imagined. I walked around back to the sliding door and pressed my palm against the glass. Inside, the walls still held family portraits. The county fair Christmas in matching pajamas. The Thanksgiving where the turkey skin blistered just right. I thought about every little fix I'd made: routers, batteries, leaky faucets that coughed at 2 a.m. No one frames a picture of the person who fixed the leak. That's all right. You don't fix for applause. But you don't fix and call it your destiny either. I took my hand off the glass and left no print. I didn't know it then, but leaving no print was an omen I could live with. On my way back to the car, Mrs. Whitaker waved from her porch swing. "Miles, honey," she called. "Tell your father that sign scratched my birch when the wind kicked up. If he's going to be proud, he can be careful." I promised I'd pass it along, and we both laughed because sometimes laughter is the only polite thing a truth can wear in public. At my apartment, I packed a small go bag for the event hall, USB labeled house in block letters, printed deck as backup, the bank letters in a plastic envelope, the glossy banner photo, a pen that didn't skip 2 paper clips, a second shirt, in case nerves sweat through the first. It felt like I was traveling 2 miles to cross an ocean. I zipped the bag and placed it by the door next to polished shoes that reflected my ceiling light like a tiny moon. The room smelled like starch and coffee and the faint citrus cleaner I'd started using to erase the smell of other people's dinners from my clothes. That night, Carter fam went quiet. It was the kind of quiet that's really stagehands moving scenery. Lydia sent a late text to me: "Only be our good boy tomorrow. Don't embarrass your brother. Your father is under stress." I typed, "I'll be kind." Then I set the phone down and whispered to the empty room. Kindness isn't agreeing, so I could hear the sentence out loud in my own voice. I didn't know it then, but saying things to an empty room is how you make them fit in your mouth for later. Morning of the dinner, I woke before the alarm and sat on the edge of the bed for a full minute, feet on the rug, hands on my knees, letting my body catch up to itself. I showered, shaved, and dressed the way you dress when you plan to be remembered for what you said, not what you wore. White shirt tucked clean, dark trousers, belt that didn't squeak, shoes that understood floors. Honey blonde hair combed neat, parted in a way that made my face look disciplined. A dab of concealer for the camera lights. I stood in the mirror and watched the left-right light sketch my face into planes. It looked like a person who could carry a binder into a room full of people who taught him to doubt his own arithmetic and still do math in public. On my way out, I slipped Grandpa's old coin into my pocket. A tarnished silver dollar he used to flip for heads or tails on Sunday drives when we were deciding between ice cream flavors. "Chance is just choice with a costume," he'd say, winking. The coin was heavy in that satisfying way only useless things can be. I didn't need luck. I needed a spine. But the coin reminded my hand that I had weight. I parked behind the event hall, where the dumpsters made the air smell like old flowers and tomato sauce. I watched vendors carry in trays covered with foil, the heat escaping in thin white ghosts. Jade caught me by the side door. "You ready?" she asked, eyes scanning my face like a nurse checking vitals. "Ready enough," I said. She squeezed my forearm, and in that split second, the angle of my arm in the light looked like the rehearsal frame, both hands visible, no elbows, cut off the camera, getting everything I meant to show. "They won't expect what you have," she said. "They never do," I said. I didn't know it then, but not being expected would be my favorite part. Inside the hall was dressed like Hope white tablecloths, votive candles, a projector already humming in the back like a distant beehive. The slideshow looping on the idle screen showed stock photos of hands shaking and a phrase in cursive, family always. I could smell butter and rental coffee, and underneath it, all the nervous ozone that gathers before a mic turns on. Frank shook men's hands like he was closing deals with each squeeze. Lydia floated smoothing details that didn't need smoothing. Chase arrived late enough to be seen, but early enough to claim innocence. He hugged me with cologne and smiled for cameras that hadn't lifted yet. "Big night," he said. "Keep it sweet." I felt my mouth make the shape of a smile that didn't touch my teeth. I checked the projector input. The HDMI cable was too loose. I tightened it. The USB slot stuck. I cleared lint with the corner of a paper napkin. Small fixes, the kind of fixes I was born to do. As I tested the slide advanced, the total flashed red $68,450 and then went dark again. The number looked bigger on a wall than in a bank app. It should. Walls make math feel like architecture. I could feel the old contract tugging, be useful. Keep it warm. Save the night. And I stood still until the tug passed. I thought of the photo Mrs. Whitaker gave me of Owen's wet ink, of Jade's DM, of Aunt Marlene's cart clacking over linoleum like a drum. I thought of the boy in the brown pants and the man in the white shirt. I thought very quietly, "Use it for you." My chest unlocked. The MC tapped the mic. The feedback blinked the room into attention. "Welcome everyone," he said. "Tonight we celebrate backbone and sacrifice." He gestured toward my family's table. Candles shimmered. Plates waited. The slideshow cued. The room leaned forward together like a wave, deciding where to break. I touched the binder's spine with my left hand and felt the coin in my pocket with my right. The projector hummed. The light, my old friend, ran from left to right across my face. It was showtime for people who thought life was only a feeling. I had brought facts. At 9:06 a.m., the dealership tried one more time. A chirpy text from Tara blinked on my screen, "Quick recorded verbal, just to note you're aware." I typed 3 words I'd rehearsed under streetlights: "Do not call." 10 minutes later, Owen from the bank rang. "Heads up," he said. "They pinged your file again." Freeze held. "We added a branch note: in person, only your ID only." "Friction is good," I said. Friction stopped sliding. I hung up and let the room be quiet long enough to hear the radiator tick. Boundaries make their own sound if you listen. Mom followed with a soft voicemail about keeping it sweet, and your brother needs this win. Sweet had started to taste like room temperature syrup, sticky, heavy, impossible to get off your hands. I ironed the white shirt, set the metronome to 60, breathed 4 beats, in 4 beats out, and packed the bag again, even though nothing inside had moved. USB labeled house, printed deck, bank letters with Owen's wet signature, the glossy banner photo from Mrs. Whitaker, a pen that didn't skip. Paper clips. The coin. If you've ever walked into a family event armed with paper, you know the strangest thing happens: you feel lighter. By noon, Carter fam buzzed like a fluorescent light. "Dad, tonight we honor sacrifice, don't make a scene." Lydia, bring that smile, honey. Chase, you can say something nice, right? I typed 1 sentence: "I'll be kind." Chase sent back a photo of his cufflinks shaped like tiny hammers. Caption: backbone. I set my phone face down and watched the light crawl left to right across my kitchen wall. Sometimes the sun looks like a timer. An hour before showtime, Jade slipped me the run of show near the service door. "They changed the intro," she whispered. Frank added, "a son who saved our home." Singular. She lifted her brows. "Guess which son?" "Borrowed valor," I said. "Rented, really." She squeezed my arm. "AV guy's name is Luis. He's on your side." I didn't know it then, but that name would matter when someone tried to wrestle the remote out of the truth's hands. Inside the event hall, the projector hummed like a hive. The idle slide looped phrases in cursive, family always, built on sacrifice over stock photos of clasped hands. I checked the HDMI, tightened the connection, advanced 2 dummy slides to see how the room would look when numbers hit a wall. The total $68,450 flashed red for a blink and made my stomach lift then settle. Facts have a way of standing up straight when you test them. Frank caught me by the buffet like a foreman catching a worker off task. "Tonight is about legacy," he said low. "Don't be clever." "I'm not clever," I said. "I'm accurate." He leaned closer, breath warm with rental coffee. "If you walk out of that room, don't walk back." He'd upgraded the threat since last time, no longer about the deed, now about the door. "I won't walk out," I said. "I'll sit down after I tell the truth." His jaw twitched. Keep it sweet. I nodded. Sweet doesn't mean silent. It never did. Lydia floated in with centerpieces and apologies. You too, she whispered, patting air between us like she could smooth it. To me, a practiced smile. You look handsome when you keep it simple. Simple as in agreeable. She tapped the knot of my tie with a fingertip. Good boy, just for tonight. Something in me buckled, then straightened. I'll be kind, I said again, and felt the coin in my pocket go heavy then light. Kind isn't yes. It's how you say no. Chase arrived late enough to be seen. He hugged me like we were a team and not a system. Big night, he said. They're running a video. I haven't even seen it. He winked. Maybe you'll finally get to be the hero. Not my costume, I said. He laughed. Please. You love capes. He smelled like expensive cologne and a clean truck. It was the smell of a story that expected applause. Mini drama 1 began at the AV table. A volunteer in a branded polo clipboard headset guarded the laptop like a bouncer guards a velvet rope. Presentations are locked, he said. No substitutions. Luis, the real tech, appeared behind him with a half smile. We lock for chaos, he said, not for correctness. He plugged my USB and tested the file, and nodded at me once, as if we'd just signed something. The volunteer frowned. We can't just. We can, Luis said, if we like the truth more than surprises. The clipboard guy backed off, but not far. I felt the first bead of sweat break, and then dry. Being right doesn't keep you from shaking. Preparation keeps you from dropping the thing you brought. Mini drama 2 Aunt Marlene intercepted me near the water pitchers. You all right, she asked. Define all right. Breathing, standing, not apologizing for facts. 2 of 3, I said. She handed me a tissue like a talisman. You say it clean, she said. Let silence do the yelling. Silence can yell. I'd learned that at 100 dinners. Mini drama 3 arrived with an envelope. Lydia pressed it into my palm like a love letter. Inside, a printed program that listed Chase as recipient of the Carter Backbone Award. Under achievements ensured mortgage continuity, provided emergency funds during downturns, stabilized family operations. My name didn't appear. We wanted something for him to keep. She said, eyes big, voice small. He's been under such pressure. I slid the paper back into the envelope, then slid the envelope into my bag. Paper belongs with paper, I said. She blinked. Don't be cruel. I'm being careful. Careful sounds like cruel if you've never had to be it. Mini drama 4 came disguised as a toast rehearsal. Frank gathered a small circle men from church, a supplier, Chase beaming as he practiced the line about the son who stood up when others stayed seated. He didn't look at me when he said it. The supplier clapped Frank's shoulder. Proud day, he said. Takes a man to sign on the line. I let the sentence hang there between us until it lost its shine. Then I looked at the projector. The projector looked back, patient as a courthouse. Backstage, Jade hissed my name. Tara's here, she whispered. The finance manager from the dealership had shown up in a blazer that wanted you to forget it was a uniform. Your mom invited partners who support our boys, Jade said. She thinks the car is part of the legacy story. Tara smiled like a coupon. We love to see families come together, she said. If we can do a quick acknowledgement on stage. No, I said. No stage. No acknowledgement. No phone calls. Remove my name from every file. Her smile did what smiles do when they meet a wall. We're just here to celebrate. So am I said. I brought candles and receipts. Mini drama 5 started when the neighbor's photo tried to disappear. Mrs. Whitaker texted to ask if I still needed the original. She had printed 2 and couldn't find one. It's in my pocket, I wrote back, which was true, and not true. The glossy lived in my bag now under the bank letter under the deck. Objects have a way of holding hands when they're meant to stand together. I pressed the plastic envelope flat and felt the edges line up, ink to ink, proof to proof. People get lost. Paper can be found. The room filled. Folding chairs complained. Votives trembled in the HVAC's careful breeze. I counted breaths until my pulse matched the tick of the watch. Luis gave me a tiny nod from the back like a conductor counting down an invisible bar. Frank took the mic. Tonight, he said, we honor the backbone of the Carter family. Applause dutiful. He stretched the syllables of backbone like they weighed money. A man who stepped up when the world stepped back. More applause, louder. He gestured to Chase. The projector went black, then gray, then waited. In the front row, Lydia dabbed the corners of her eyes with a cloth napkin, sorrow as pageantry. Chase lifted his chin like a runway model receiving a crown. Aunt Marlene folded her hands and stared at the screen as if she could will it to tell the truth. Jade stood by the AV table, one finger on the spacebar, like a guard on a bridge. I felt for the coin. I found the binder's spine. The numbers inside it felt taller than me. Then mini-drama 6, the last one before the drop, landed in the form of a text from Dad, though he stood 20 feet away. Don't. The period looked like a nail. He didn't trust the look on my face and tried to hammer it down. I typed one word back kindly. He stared at his phone, then at me, then at the dark screen, waiting to choose a story. I didn't know it then, but men like my father believe they can narrate a room by staring hard enough. Rooms don't care. Machines don't either. The MC lifted his hand. Before we roll the tribute, he said, Miles has a few words. I hadn't asked for that, but I didn't refuse. I stood. The light moved across my face from left to right the way it does when you stand where people can see you. My voice found the register I'd practiced, with the metronome low, even unafraid of commas. Thank you, I said. I'll be brief. And kind. The room made that almost sound people make when they don't believe you. I put the binder on the podium and opened to the first page. Plastic crackled. Receipts breathed. Somewhere in the back, Luis's thumb hovered over the spacebar like a promise. I kept my hands visible on the podium, left on the binder's spine, right resting still. I'm not here to take anything, I said. I'm here to correct the record. The word correct landed like a level on a crooked shelf. Frank lifted a hand. Not tonight, he said, voice low but wired. We celebrate tonight. We can, I said. We'll just celebrate the right person. A polite laugh broke from somewhere and died in midair. Lydia dabbed her eyes harder, napkin trembling like a flag. Miles, she whispered, please. Keep it sweet. I will, I said. Sweet and accurate aren't opposites. In the corner of my eye, I saw Louise tap the spacebar once to wake the projector. The gray screen brightened. The room hummed. Mini-drama 1 began with the wrong file. The tribute deck blinked up on the wall, stock photos, cursive, a son who saved our home. Chase's face filled the screen. A collage of selfies and job site shots. Lydia clutched her chest. Frank looked relieved enough to forgive a war. Jade met my eyes, mouthed wait. Louise frowned, toggled inputs, and the cursor appeared in the corner, like a small, stubborn witness. Leave it, Frank said to the back. He didn't turn around. He turned his stare into a rope and threw it at the screen. No, I said calmly. We'll use mine. I slid the USB from my pocket and held it up so the camera phones could see something besides a smile. 3 years. One title, Property Support. Mini-drama 2 was the volunteer with the clipboard stepping between me and the laptop like a mall cop. We cannot swap content during a live program, he recited. Louise sidestepped him with the grace of someone who likes machines more than rules. We can, he said, if what's playing is wrong. He plugged the drive, dragged a file, and gave me a tiny nod. The volunteer whispered, we're not insured for this, to no one in particular, then backed up until his badge clicked on his lanyard like a metronome gone nervous. Short, Frank said, eyes on me. Make it short if you insist. He smiled for the room. My younger son is in finance. He loves a chart. The line got a ripple. He wanted it to be a joke. Jokes are a hedge. Charts keep liars bored. I said. That's their charm. Mini-drama 3 tried to wear perfume. Tara from the dealership, blazer sharp, took 2 steps toward the stage with a mic in hand. We're so proud to partner with families like. No, I said into my mic, not cruel, just steady. No partners. Remove my name from your files. Do not call me. A few heads turned as if embarrassed on her behalf. She receded to the wall, smile on like a porch light you forgot to turn off. Enough, Frank said, smile cracking at the edges. Nobody wants a legal seminar at dinner. Correct, I said. So I brought a summary. I opened the binder. Plastic breathed. Paper made that small thunder it makes when it knows it's being listened to. Luis dimmed the house lights a notch. The projector whirred a little louder, as if it were leaning in. Slide 1, I said. Mini-drama 4. Lydia stood halfway, one hand on the table, as if she could hold the evening down. He's under so much pressure, she said, nodding toward Chase. Miles, don't put your brother on trial. I'm not, I said. I'm putting time on the wall. Luis hit the space bar before anyone could add a sentence. The title filled the screen in boring font, Property Support, 2021-2023. Under it, what kept the house paid? A column of dates marched down the left, amounts. Down the right, memo lines down the middle, like backbone. The total wasn't there yet. We weren't at the end. A murmur moved across the room like wind under a tent. People leaned forward. Chase leaned back. Frank didn't move. Mini drama 5 wasn't loud. It was a single cough from an uncle, the kind a man makes when he recognizes arithmetic and doesn't know where to put his hands. He squinted at the screen. Those are months, he said to nobody. Aunt Marlene answered without moving her eyes. Yes, she said. All of them. Chase forced a chuckle. Miles loves memos, he said to the room. He's always been meticulous. Meticulous keeps roofs on, I said. He shrugged. We all pitched in. Louise tapped once. Slide 2 bank header Owen's letter fraud alert placed. Credit file frozen. In person only with government ID. Note on file, any attempt to add client triggers direct contact with client. Signature date the wet halo from the pin's pause. We didn't, I said, evenly pitch my name in. Mini drama 6 came as a buzz. Frank's phone vibrated on the table screen, lighting his plate. He glanced down and his mouth flattened. The word bank showed in the preview line. He silenced it and shoved the phone under his napkin like a secret that might stain. The napkin glowed faintly, then dimmed. He looked back up with a pastor's face. Miles, let's not be petty. We all know families do what they have to do. Exactly, I said. So, let's say what we did. He tried to stand. Lydia tugged his sleeve. Frank, she whispered the please inside his name. Mini drama 7 wore a smile. Honey, Lydia said to me, you look so handsome when you keep it simple. Say one nice thing about your brother, and we'll move on. Her tone sugared the air. I will, I said. After we clear one thing. I nodded at Luis. Spacebar. Slide 3 screenshot of a cheerful email from a dealership. Great news. Your application is in review, followed by the red bar. Secondary applicant identity verification failed. Timestamp my name in the corner like a watermark. Tara's smile lost a degree. She lifted her chin like a swimmer, refusing to cough. Clerical error, she said to the air. Happens all the time. Errors have authors, I said. Chase scratched his jaw. Okay, so there was a mix-up. You're blowing up nothing. Nothing doesn't ping a frozen file, I said. Nothing doesn't send 3 quick verbal requests to my phone in one morning. Mini drama 8 tried to be sentimental. Frank reached for the mic. We're grateful for both our sons, he said. Chase is the backbone. Miles is the receipt, Aunt Marlene said aloud as if she were finishing a prayer. A few people laughed without meaning to. Relief sounds like that when it finds a leak. Respectfully, I said. Looking at Frank, you added one son to the deed after 3 years of the other son paying the difference. That's not grateful. That's bad math. His jaw set. If you walk out of this room, he said, don't come back. I'm not walking out, I said. I'm staying for the truth. Mini drama 9, Luis's hand hovered waiting. I raised mine a fraction. He tapped. Slide 4, the neighbor's glossy, now 13 feet wide. Congrats, Chase, welcome to the deed. The letters looked harmless, enlarged like confetti that hadn't learned what it meant. In the bottom right corner, the timestamp, Mrs. Whitaker's cheap printer had stamped without asking proof's humble cousin. A hush changed shape into something like a collective inhale. In the wall-sized photo, you could see the front window reflection, a figure carrying a bag, the shape familiar. My stomach dropped to floor and stopped. I hadn't noticed that reflection before. I didn't point it out. Some facts know when to keep themselves for later. Lydia's voice went small. It was meant to encourage, she said. To celebrate. She looked suddenly tired in a way I almost recognized. We thought. You didn't think I'd put it on a wall, I said gently. That's all. Mini drama 10 was the clipboard volunteer making one last stand. He stepped toward Louise, hand out for the keyboard, like a hall monitor, reaching for contraband. Time, he whispered. We're off schedule. Louise didn't blink. Schedules are suggestions, he said, unless they hide lies. He nodded at me again. My hands were steady now, the metronome breathing under my ribs, the coin quiet in my pocket like a good luck I didn't need. Frank turned to the room salesman Swift. We've all seen enough, he announced. Let's cut the cake. The rest is slide 5, I said. Louise tapped. The total filled the wall, no commas, no embellishment, just a dense red underline that ran the length of a lifetime, 68450. The number didn't shout. It simply existed, louder than anything else in the room. The murmur became a sound I'd never heard from my family listening. I let the silence do the yelling, just like Aunt Marlene told me. Then I reached for the next sleeve in the binder, the one with Owen's wet signature stacked over the ledger. The one that lined the months up like a spine, and placed it on the podium so anyone could come up and see it with their own eyes. I lifted my head. I'm not asking for a line on a deed, I said, voice steady in the artificial dusk. I'm asking for accuracy and a boundary. After this, there are no more quick verbals, no more borrowed names, no more secret decisions that pretend. I agreed. If you want my help, you ask. If you put my name where it doesn't belong, I pull it back. Frank stood very slowly like a man picking a fight with gravity. Apologize, he said. Apologize to your brother for making a spectacle, and we eat. Or you leave. Kindly, I said no. Chase finally spoke to me directly, not to the room. You really won't do it, he said. Not angry. Almost curious. I really won't, I said. Luis shifted his weight finger on the key for the final sequence. The projector's fan climbed half a step, waiting. The candles flickered like they were running out of choreography. Somewhere behind me a tray clinked in the kitchen, and the sound echoed like a gavel too far away to matter. Then let's finish, I said, and nodded to the back. The room held its breath. Louise tapped the key, and the first slide bloomed white wall, black font, nothing pretty. Property support, 2021-2023. My voice stayed at the metronome I'd practiced. Low. Even. These are the months, I said. This is what kept your house paid. The projector hummed like a hive. The candles trembled in the airflow. Someone's bracelet chimed once and went still. Frank laughed like a cough. Cute, he said. You done? Not yet. Slide advance. January, February, March. A clean spine of dates and amounts. The room began to lean toward the wall like iron to a magnet. I could feel the heat from the left, a line across my cheekbone. The right side of my face stayed in a clean shadow. I kept both hands visible. Left on the binder's spine. Right open palm down steady. Chase tried a grin. We all help, man. Then let's see it, I said. If your transfers exist, we'll add them. Accuracy loves company. Lydia stood halfway, napkin clutched like a white flag. He's under pressure, she whispered. Miles, please. Pressure doesn't rearrange math, I said. Louise tapped. The letter appeared, Owen's bank header, the words fraud alert placed. Credit file frozen, in person only with government ID. Owen's signature bled a tiny halo where the pen paused. The room inhaled together. Tara, from the dealership, took a step and stopped when every head near her turned by accident. Her smile froze on like porch light. Frank tried the microphone. Families don't do this, he said. Calm. Pastoral. They handle things at home. You moved it to a hall, I said. I brought a wall big enough for the truth. He set the mic down too carefully. The metal rang. Apologize, he said, quiet. You're humiliating your brother. I looked at Chase. I'm naming my work, I said. His humiliation is optional. A laugh cracked somewhere, then died. Aunt Marlene didn't laugh. She folded her hands in front of her, like a woman at a baptism who has already seen the river. Slide. The cheerful email with its chirpy subject line. Great news. Your application is in review. Below it the red bar, secondary applicant identity verification failed. Timestamp in the corner like a witness. I let it sit long enough to become a memory. The only thing I consent to, I said, is my own signature. Tara tried one last time. It was a clerical. Errors have authors, I said. This one doesn't live at my address. The volunteer with the clipboard edged toward Louise. We're off program, he whispered. Louise didn't blink. We're on truth, he said. Stronger signal. Frank stood. The chair feet screeched concrete, and the sound bounced off the ceiling like a thrown fork. You put that USB in, and you walk out of my family, he said. Voice low enough that the mic didn't catch it. I already put it in, I said, not moving. And I'm sitting down afterward. He stared at me as if he could reverse time by looking hard. The stare slid off. Machines don't negotiate. Slide. The neighbor's glossy, now a billboard. Congrats, Chase, welcome to the deed. The letters looked like harmless balloons. In the lower corner, the cheap printer's timestamp ticked like a small truth that wouldn't go away. My stomach dropped to the floor at the reflection in the window, someone carrying a bag, a shape I knew. I kept it in my pocket like the coin. Not now. Lydia's voice went thin. We just wanted to encourage, she said. To celebrate. I nodded. Then we'll celebrate what happened. I let the silence do the yelling. It knew how. Slide. The total. No commas, no confetti. 68450, with a hard red underline that seemed to vibrate on the white paint. The number didn't need volume. It had weight. The room made a sound I'd never heard from them listening. In that sound, I could hear chair screws settling, the slow fan building in the projector, the whisper of a coat sleeve. People don't go quiet like that, unless something sturdy is in the room. Here's the line, I said. After tonight, no more quick verbals. No more borrowed names. No more decisions that use me without asking me. If you want my help, you ask. If you put my name where it doesn't belong, I pull it back. Quietly. Completely. Frank pointed at the screen like he was trying to turn it off with his finger. You think a slideshow makes you a man, he said. No, I said. Saying no does. Chase's face did something complicated. He looked at me, not the wall. You really won't do it, he said, like he was testing each word for cracks. I really won't. He nodded once micro-small, as if trying on a world where I was a boundary instead of a bridge. Lydia pressed the napkin to her mouth. Say something nice about your brother, she said. Let's eat. I looked at Chase again. You're good at what you do, I said, and I won't carry what you won't sign. Aunt Marlene exhaled a tiny amen. Frank picked up the mic but didn't bring it to his mouth. He stared at the keyhole of the back door like he'd rather be outside. If you leave now, he said, you don't come back. I told you, I said. I'm not leaving. I closed the binder. The plastic crackled like ice breaking on a pond. I stepped down from the podium and walked to our table, the white tablecloth, to clean the candles doing their best. I took my spare house key from my wallet, not dramatic, just metal, and set it near the centerpiece. It made a small, honest sound. Lydia flinched like a fork had fallen. What are you doing? She whispered. Returning what lets you let me in without asking. Frank's jaw tightened. You ungrateful. Careful, Aunt Marlene said, and it worked better than any sermon. I didn't sit yet. I picked up the plastic envelope, slid out Owen's letter, and placed it beside the key. Then I placed the glossy banner photo on top, the timestamp showing like a throat. I turned to the room the way you turn to a jury that didn't know it signed up. If anyone here wants to see, I said, come up. It's not secret. It never should have been. No one moved first. Then a supplier man with paint on his knuckles stood and walked up as if to the altar. He bent red, nodded like math had blessed him. Well, I'll be, he said. He stepped aside. A cousin followed. Then one of the church men. Paper passed from eyes to eyes like something warm. Frank started toward the AV table as if force could reboot the night. Luis angled his body without touching him. We're saving the file, he said. For the family archive. Frank stopped, stunned by a word he thought belonged to him, archive. Chase sat down hard. The chair groaned. He stared at the total like a person looking through ice at a dropped phone. You kept us from losing it, he said, not to me, not to anyone, just to the air that had run out of choreography. I let a small smile find one corner of my mouth. Not cruel. Finished. The kind of smile you make when a ledger balances, and no one claps. I slid the binder back into my bag and felt the coin settle in my pocket like a heart learning a new rhythm. The MC cleared his throat and found a neutral line he could live with. Dinner is served, he said. Saturday, I folded my napkin. The turkey tasted like turkey. The potatoes were warm. The cranberry was too sweet. Some things are. Across the table, Lydia's hands shook as she cut meat for a plate she could no longer control. Frank held his knife, then put it down, then picked it up again like a man who had mislaid his script. Chase ate without looking up, not humbled, not defiant, just quiet. The room recalibrated around a number it could not unknow. When plates were halfway empty, Frank tried to salvage toast. He lifted his glass and found no words inside it. He set it down. The clink rang long enough to sound like a bell. I breathed in for 4 beats, out for 4. The light ran across my face from left to right and was done with me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I was something better, documented. I looked at the key on the table, at the letter, at the glossy, with its timestamp, at the wall, with its faint square of light where the total had been, and I said quietly, let's eat. I didn't drive far. I went home, set the binder on the counter, and let the room be as quiet as I'd earned it. The oven smell still clung to my shirt's sage and heat, and under it the clean starch of cotton that hadn't wrinkled. I washed my hands, watched the water run clear, and opened my laptop. At 9:18 p.m., an email pinged from the dealership's no reply. Subject: application withdrawn. Body: unable to verify, secondary applicant due to frozen credit, cannot proceed as structured. There was a timestamp at the top right, small and black. I took a screenshot, then another with the clock showing, and filed both in a folder called Rope. Paper doesn't celebrate. It just stays put. 10 minutes later, Owen left a voicemail. Calm voice, slight Midwestern roundness. We had an attempted ad as authorized user on a business card. Someone said, he's with me. Branch followed the note. Denied. You'll get a formal letter. I pictured a teller looking at a screen that told the truth without flinching. I saved the message and wrote his name on a sticky note, like it belonged on a spine. Mercer fam stayed quiet like a theater after the curtain drops, and no one wants to be first out of their seat. Then Aunt Marlene texted me privately. Let silence do the yelling. You did fine. A beat later, Jade sent a photo of the USB in her palm, the label house visible. Her caption, just 3 words, kept the file. Mom's bubble finally rose. I hope you're happy. Then, as if she'd remembered a script note, please don't be cruel. I typed, deleted, then answered I was kind and accurate. The dots tried to form, then died. Sunday morning, a voicemail from Dad landed like a dropped tool. Man to man, he said. Come by. We can fix this. We'll add you to the deed. I'll make it right. His tone wore generosity like cologne. I poured coffee and drafted a 1-page boundary agreement instead. No cosign requests, no adding my name without my ink, no verbal awareness, all financial asks in writing in advance. I sent it as a PDF and an e-sign link. The status line later showed viewed not signed. The realtor called that afternoon. Your offer was accepted, she said. Voice bright the way winter sun is bright, clean, a little unforgiving. South-facing, 1 bed, new paint. 3 weeks to close if the appraisal behaves. I said yes, while staring at the hook by my door where a second key would hang soon. The word yes didn't wobble. I took the neighbor's glossy from the envelope and really looked this time. In the front window's reflection, faint as a watermark, a figure carried a bag of zip ties and a step stool. The height and slope looked like my mother. I slid the photo back into its sleeve. Not a grenade. A seed. At dusk I jogged past the house. In the yard, a for sale sign leaned 2 degrees to the left, the ground still soft from last week's rain. The windows held their light the way a person holds breath. My phone buzzed. Chase. I didn't know the total, he wrote. Now you do, I sent back. He started to type, then stopped. The dots went quiet. I went home, put the binder on the top shelf where my hand goes first, and laid Grandpa's coin beside it until both metal and plastic warmed to the room. The studio smelled like lemon cleaner and coffee, nothing borrowed. I printed the boundary agreement and set it under a magnet on the fridge. If they sign, we can talk. If they don't, gravity will do what gravity does. They thought a deed could define me. They thought a slideshow would shame me. What they didn't know was the only signature that counts for me is mine, and I haven't used it yet. Before you click away, tell me the one moment that felt like your living room, the text that crossed a line, the number on the wall, the key on the table. Drop it in the comments so someone scrolling at 2 a.m. knows they're not crazy. Hit like if the quiet parts were the loudest. Share this with the friend who keeps receipts and breathes before they answer. New first-person dramas land here every week where boundaries speak louder than yelling. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, subscribe. This story isn't over.